Day 6 of the candidates in Yekaterinburg, Russia. With a clear leader finally emerging, 8 of the world's best players were back on stage to fight for precious wins. Yan Nepomniachtchi defeated China's Ding Liren in a wild affair, allowing the Russian superstar to extend his lead to a full point over his nearest rival. It's number 1 against number 2 in a matchup that could make history. Round 7 of exciting action coming up next.
Welcome to round 7 of the 2020 candidates from Yekaterinburg, Russia. It is the tournament to determine the challenger to Magnus Carlsen for the world champion title, hopefully later this year. I'm Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez here in the studio with Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan, who is now 60 years old. Yasser, how's it feel?
Not too much different from yesterday, that's for sure. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 2020 coverage of the candidates. The first 3 rounds were fantastic topsy-turvy affairs, but then the last 3 rounds have been perfect for Nepo. Yan is the one who is practicing his social distancing as he stands clear in the tables. Let's take a look, Alejandro, at the standings after 6 rounds of play.
It's not just half a point, it's a full point that he has on the field, and actually over just one other player. Vachier-Lagrave is the only other person with a plus score in the tournament, 3.5 points. They're facing each other today. Maxime with the white piece is certainly a crucial game for the tournament, and when you want to look at it that way, chess history.
Absolutely, and 4 players tied at 50% from Fabi on down to Anish, 2 players in final position. And what a story, what a shocking story is Ding Liren.
Absolutely, I'm hopeful for the title. Everybody has been singing his praises for the last half of 2019, and very well deserved.
Yeah,
very well deserved. It's an unbelievable run, and he's just not finding his form here. But let's take a look at the format in Yekaterinburg. It's a double round robin. That means that's 14 rounds of chess. Everybody gets equal amounts of whites and blacks, and it's a very long time control. 100 minutes for the first 40 moves, 50 minutes for the next 20, and 15 minutes once you reach move 60. So plenty of time to think, and if that wasn't enough, you still get your 30 seconds per move from move 1. No draw offers on Black's 40 until Black's 40th move, and of course €500,000 of prize fund that nobody's looking at because everybody cares about that one spot. That's victory, and everything else will taste like defeat.
Exactly, challenger or bust. And everybody should be familiar with our schedule, but let's just take another peek at what it looks like.
3 games and a rest day, 3 games and a rest day, and today is the first of 3. We had a rest day yesterday. Join us today, join us tomorrow, join us the day after, and on March 28th we will have the next rest day.
Wonderful.
Let's go directly to the breaking news of the round with Maurice Ashley.
Well, thank you, Alejandro. And indeed, we have a huge matchup between numbers 1 and 2 in the tournament. Number 2 being Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He has the white pieces against Yan Nepomniachtchi, and it looks right now like Yan is in big trouble. Take a look at this position. It all started back here with a standard maneuver in the winner of French, where this move, Queen G4, attacks the pawn, and Rook G8 defending it, eschewing castling rights. Of course, he couldn't castle immediately because of Bishop H6, but Bishop B5, King F8, and you wonder, did this guy forget how to castle the way the king and the rook are placed? Well, that lasted all the way. Of course, it's hard to fix. And at the moment you see this position, you say, Black looks like he's down a rook. He's got to fix the situation. Play the move C4, shutting down any activity on this side. And Maxime said, no problem, I'll castle play Queen C2. How are you going to solve this problem? Rook H8, the last move. Looked like that rook never moved, but he's wasting time here trying to figure this out. You know White's going to try to crash through on the queen side while ahead that entire rook. This is definitely a problem for Nepo, and he's also feeling it on the clock. He's at 47. He's not way down against Maxime, but you don't want to be on the defensive side of this position. We know he's traditionally a very fast player. Well, let's take a look, as this is indeed the game of the day, but look at the score. Maxime with a 5-1 score with 7 draws. That's huge. That's saying, I got your number. Maxime has defeated him in a critical game in the last round before, right here in St. Louis, to win the Singfield Cup. He also has not done so more recently, not winning a big game. But that was not a last round affair. This is not a last round affair, I should say. This is simply round 7, but it could be huge for this tournament. I mean, absolutely massive, because he would tie Nepo, and all the other chasers would feel like they were back in it as well. Let's take a look at Maxime's path to this point, as he has won only 1 game. He was in a little bit of trouble in a couple of them. The one against Caruana, not so bad. He was able to handle that position. But the big miss that he had against Grischuk, that was certainly a low light for him. He had a win on the board. He could have crushed his opponent. That would have given him the full point. He ended up only drawing that game. He needs to get points. It's not going to be enough to score +1. And somebody who's saying, take your stinking +1. I'm trying to run away with this event. Already on +3 is Nepomniachtchi, as you see there. He's got 4.5. That's out of 6. +3 already. That's a massive score. Absolutely. After drawing the first round, and after winning the first round, drawing the next 3, and then bang, bang, 2 wins in a row. Is he uncatchable? Well, the history of this tournament says yes. The 4 candidates played in this 14-round format have featured only 1 comeback that has featured all comebacks of half a point at most. Half a point has been the biggest lead. Any player who has established a full point lead has gone on to win the tournament. Well, it's only round 7, so calling him completely uncatchable seems maybe a bit early, but I'll tell you, Nepo will take it, so will his fans in Russia. We'll see, though, because this game looks like he's in a little bit of trouble.
Thank you,
Maurice.
Maurice.
Let's look at the rest of the pairings. We also have other important matchups. 2 matches of 50% players playing against each other. I do feel if they're going to make any headlines in this tournament, they want to really put pressure on either MVL or Nepo, whoever's coming out ahead, does have to win today.
Exactly, and those 2 games are between Fabi and Wang Hao, and Anish and Alexander Grischuk, as those 4 players are all at 50%, and that's just not going to get it done. You're not going to become a challenger unless you put together some wins. There we see MVL, and then finally Ding, Laren, and Carol. Somebody's going to say, okay, I don't want to be last.
Right.
you take the place.
But with -2 for both players, it is difficult to imagine that there will be the challenger to Magnus Carlsen.
Exactly. At this moment, I think they're just looking for a decent result.
Yeah,
and getting out of here. Let's just jump right into the game.
Right into the action. I think we have to go into the MVL game. It is the game of the day.
Of course.
To mention that it was a do-or-die match that they had in Jerusalem, because
exactly the one that Maurice was referencing.
Because despite the fact that MVL is here,
yes,
he's made it through some not orthodox method, let's say.
Right.
Rajabov withdrew from the tournament. That means MVL got the other spot. But remember, Nepo knocked out MVL from this tournament by defeating him in Jerusalem. Had it been the other way around, MVL would be here and Nepo wouldn't.
Right.
MVL is here anyway, but that was through extenuating circumstances.
Indeed, indeed. And the game, much to my surprise, Jan is staying with his French defense.
A very risky opening.
I think so as well. I mean, and it's certainly not popular at the most elite levels. At club levels, the club players love the French, but this particular variation, and when you look at it, you know, this castling situation that Maurice referenced earlier, just doesn't feel like Black ever really got equality, because he never solved his kingside problem. The last moves were really telling. Rook H8.
Just preventing the queen coming from...
I don't see Queen H7 as being necessarily a threat, but maybe it's just one of those things that Nepo just didn't know what to do.
We have
A3, A4, very important move, very standard type of move, and also sets up for moves like a rook lifts, rook B5, rook B4. perhaps
Bring the
on
other
tap.
rook to b1, the bishop on d2. You can imagine it going to a3. It's going to have a beautiful diagonal there.
Exactly, as we've seen so often in many of those winner wars.
Yeah.
The dark square bishop at the moment looks like an impotent bishop. It's not doing anything other than attacking h6. Suddenly you put the bishop on a3 and it becomes
It's a monster.
lord of the
and
diagonal.
As a French player myself, I know when the bishop gets there,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world, but you really have to start being careful. Any knight jump will just be absolutely fatal.
In this specific position, I'm going to challenge you, Alejandro. You've got this rook on h8. How do you solve it?
Well, he's trying to solve it in a very mysterious way. He played king e8.
He?
Yeah.
After a4.
Obviously preparing castling.
Hoping his opponent will allow him to castle. So you think he's going to play king
never
e8,
know.
d8, c8?
I don't see any other point for the move king e8. I think he's just trying to get the king out of the way.
And by the way, could we
Yes,
add
please.
in this board I'm seeing right here?
Yeah.
You made the point about rook h8.
Yes.
If you try that maneuver you just played, and then you finally move your rook, queen h7 is laying in wait.
So if we, for example, after king e8, I go g3. You go a king here, I go king g2. I'm just making some moves for white so we can demonstrate a point that is
When the rook lives.
you could
You probably
end
should
up,
have traded already, but when this
Yeah.
this move happens, you're gonna have to put your rook back on g8, right?
Exactly.
You don't want to trade off a pair all the rooks because queen to h7 will simply win the pawn.
right, there'll be issue.
There'll be nobody to defend it. Knight f5 will be met by g4.
And we already have the move rook b4, played by
After
Maxime
king
Vachier.
e8?
After king e8.
Which a4 setup.
It looks incredibly logical. You just cannot take on b4. The blockading square on c3 will be too powerful.
Oh, and then knight will appear on c3. That would be
that's
monstrous.
terrible.
Monstrous, and the passed pawns. The only thing you could say about this is you hope that you can get your king out of the way and be able to bring your rook in. But even then, that queen h7 threat keeps being there, so he'll have two things to work with: the queenside majority and the weakness on g7. Although let's note that the c pawn gets passed again, like Nepo did against Giri. Maybe he'll hope against hope that c pawn will have some value. But I think you're right, Alejandro. The blockading square just looks
But
too beautiful.
it doesn't rook b4 invite the tempo gaining knight c6?
The question is, can I give up my rook, right? Can I just go rook db1?
Okay.
Apparently not. Actually, that's a lot of compensation.
That's
being
a lot of
given.
comp. That's a lot.
Yeah, and I was thinking go b5, bishop b4, knight c3, and that's just going to crush you. Something like this. That was my plan. And
I like that plan. That's a great looking plan.
as a French player, I know that my rooks are really, really bad pieces.
And the rook on h8 actually makes a very bad impression. You may be an exchange up.
I want to play c3. I just want to toss this c pawn so I can pretend to have compensation. It's at least an open file. But it looks like you're the one who's going to benefit from this move.
Right.
But what am I supposed to do? The position's horrible.
No, I agree. I do think that after knight c6, rook db1 is a very serious alternative.
And maybe it's sacrifice.
But at this point, rook b5 might win. You have to be very careful.
Yeah, I'm not trading. I'm thinking that any trades just invites that a pawn into the game.
What about bishop c1 here?
Yeah, I was hoping that you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, the problem is always this queen h7 move. I go bishop a3 check. The king has to go back.
And now you're ready to jump.
And I'm definitely ready to jump.
Queen 8.
Give me that pawn on g7, h6,
Whole
and
position
promote
collapses.
that guy on
Exactly the
h5.
disaster we're talking about. Yeah.
Oh,
God,
yeah,
this is
toss in bishop a3.
Bishop
Yeah,
e6 and
yeah.
No,
Okay,
disaster,
we
disaster.
do see real
terrible.
issues in front of our tournament leader. Let's look at Fabiano's game. Again, Fabiano comes in as the #1 seed. Whoa, we've okay. This came out of a Petrov, and a very big theoretical duel, I want to say, is taking place here between Fabi and Wang Hao. And we get to this position. I think this is a very good move, by the way, by Wang Hao. Trade on f6.
Yeah,
And knight takes f6. Maybe.
bishop takes f6 was the engine suggestion.
Okay.
I saw that while we were getting ready for the show.
All right.
But actually, it looks very logical. This bishop on e7, and I know this positions actually rather well because we practiced them over and over again for the World Championship on the opposite spectrum, Caruana with black.
I was about to say, it just feels a little awkward that this bishop on e7 is suddenly a tactical target.
It was very surprising how often giving up the pair of bishops was the best and easiest way to equality in these positions.
And that just makes a lot of sense to me. Bishop takes, you're keeping the f-file open. Maybe on a good day this knight actually gets rerouted, not to f6 but to f4. Bishop h4, knight f4 could be on black's agenda. What happened was after knight takes f6, bishop g5. Okay, that's a little bit unexpected as well.
Well, there was a computer-esque line starting with the move knight g5.
Which looked really, really promising. The idea was to exploit the e6 square on a... if it was white's turn, for example, we'll put h6 on the board.
A logical move. It kicks out the knight, asks you, what do you actually want to do with it?
And what we want to do is play c4 so that this knight could end up on the e6 square. Like, if you wanted to really be cooperative, this would be one way of losing the game very quickly.
Yeah, but by the point the pawn gets to d5, things have already gone wrong for black.
Precisely
you have the pair of bishops. More importantly, your structure on the king side is weakened. I have control over the g6 square, which I didn't in the other variations. That gives me the e-file. So a lot of little strategical details that have changed.
For sure. And Maurice, back over to you for some breaking news in our top game.
And we have seen that move. Knight to c6 has occurred. This is what's sitting on the board. We can't imagine Nepo played rook before, MVL played rook to b4 and didn't notice Nepo's response of knight to c6. That, it was too obvious. The kick on his rook, and we are waiting for this move, rook to b1. This one would just be fabulous. The engine in the first say, wait, you're giving away an exchange, but slowly but surely you see this thermometer or barometer go up, and if you capture, in fact, I'm going to tell you, it's so bad, the engines give rook a6 as the number one move. I mean, this is like a complete joke to see that move. But I do get the idea. It's a take, and you won't be able to take back with the pawn. It's to be able to queen takes on a4. So that is a very subtle point as you look at it further. And maybe you get your knight to b6. So maybe that's his plan, because capturing looks like a complete disaster after pawn takes, your queen dropping back, and the move b5 being possible, queen back, and this bishop to b4. It just looks horrible. You're down a full rook in this position, and the pieces are streaming in too easily. So will he plan to find this move? And actually, MVL decided on a different route. Instead of doubling on the file, what a move. After knight c6, he said, let me attack you.
Whoa.
f4, I don't care. You can have my rook, and this pawn is not hanging. Takes, and takes, obviously loses material to queen to c3. So that is unplayable. He's just ready to sacrifice the exchange, no problem at all, after knight to c6, and he's played this very aggressive f4. I mean, I like that move too. If you're not going to break through on this file, why not go after f5? How does the guy slow you down? Well, knight just left e7. Talk about drawback chess. He left the f5 square alone. Let's go get him. Let's open up the position and go after him. If this happens in a capture, queen lands on g6, open file here, knight's going to f4 and the e6 pawn, that's a lot to have in this position. There goes that man. MVL is really trying to put his foot, well, I won't finish that statement, but put down, let's just say down on the guy. Right. This is looking pretty good.
Well, as we came into our show, we were saying how big and how crucial is the game. I felt it was very crucial. Maurice was thinking that, yeah, it's extremely important that MVL wins, but it doesn't mean that the tournament's over and that Nepo has got the tournament in the bag kind of thing. And I was thinking, like, yeah, maybe it does.
Maybe
actually,
it does. And he's certainly playing like it.
Yeah.
Because he's just going forward. He's playing really nice chess, in my opinion. This is the kind of chess I want to see from a candidate.
It's a challenger. Yeah. You got to get it.
You got to go get it, yes.
I'll add also a very important point is a win against Nepo puts him in the lead. Right? It doesn't tie them. He's in the lead because the tie breaks are in his favor. Right. Because the first tie break, if they end up tied at the very end of the tournament, the first tie break is your head-to-head matchup. So he will have won that game, which means when he sees Nepo in round 14, right? If things stay to form, he'll see Nepo in the last round. If they're tied, Nepo will have to win that game in order to get the tournament. He'll get the white pieces for sure, but he will have to win. So that's how big it is. A win right now puts Maxime in the lead despite the tied score.
Just referring back to the exact position on the board, one of the things that the amateur players really have to understand that white plays the move h4, h5 purposely for the strategic idea of playing f4, f5. If you didn't have your pawn on h5, then a move like f4 in a French will be met by g6.
Absolutely.
And you just kind of stymie white from playing the desirable f4, f5. But now with the pawn on h5, something that he committed to really earlier, like right out of the opening, you're set up for the f4, f5 break. Now here, one of the things that particularly stands out is obviously the fact that black's king is terrible, the rook is terrible, but also the knight on d7.
The knight on d7 is usually a huge problem for the French.
Right.
To the point where white actually gives up tempi sometimes, so the knight ends up on d7 and not somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if you could put the knight that is currently on d7 on e7, you could see a lot more harmonious kind of thing happening in black's position, because then he could play king d7 and, he's stopping f4, f5. I see really severe problems, and in fact, I see problems so severe, I might have almost suggested to have played the move knight b8 to c6 so that the king could actually end up on d7. Right now, I really like what MBL has done, and definitely I see Jan on the back foot here.
Yeah, it's almost a panic mode for the black pieces.
Right.
Once f5 gets in, you will get mated.
Yeah, the engine's even suggesting knight e7 as a move. Like, you just played knight c6, I played f4, and now go back and stop this really tremendous move. You just lost a lot of time playing that line. I will say, the only minus in that case to the move f4 is that the knight doesn't exactly get to f4 itself in some of the lines we were looking at. But Yasser, as you point out, it's possible to play very freely with this move g4. What's the guy going to do to open up your king side anyway? Will he be desperate and play f5 at some point?
I think he is.
I mean, he might have to just let you go and take en passant in that position and hope that he's going to get some counterplay after knight takes, which, by the way, the e4 square does become a little
compromised.
A point there for him. Knight takes here with the knight trying to get to that square and hitting the pawn. This could play into black's hands. More so, I would rather this position than the other one,
for sure.
At least. So that's something that Maxime will have to pay attention to, just how he avoids breaks by black. So the f4 square was conceded by placing a pawn on that square. We have to at least say that. So knight e7 looks like maybe the best defensive move at the moment.
Right.
It doesn't solve the problem of that rook on h8, however. And I think black will have to deal with white going on the queen side again.
Exactly.
I have a simple question.
Sure.
You sacrifice and exchange once.
Yeah.
Why not again? Can I just go f5 directly, or is it just asking a little bit too much?
Did you say a simple question?
Yeah.
That was not simple at all. What an interesting idea.
Well, the idea was that we were sacrificing in exchange for, getting our bishop into play. Here, the exchange sacrifice may not pan out as beautifully.
More,
but let's.
He's dropping the a pawn.
Yeah. And I don't like that I'm trading off my rook.
Every
rook comes on. Now, unless e6 is bringing home some really good looking. No,
it just feels like I run out of steam.
Yeah. But okay, inspired, but probably not necessary.
Yeah, sir, let me interrupt you a second.
Please.
We usually don't take phone calls this early in the show, but we have a fan from Nepal, and well, let's let him hear what he has to say.
All right.
Tell us your name and your wishes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Alejandro. Hi, Ed, and hi, Maurice. It's a pleasure talking to you. And happy birthday, Ed. I don't have any question to ask. I just want to thank all of you gentlemen for your lovely commentary. It's a pleasure watching you. A lot to learn from you, and the way you explain, so that a beginner like me can understand. It's really, really nice courtesy from you. And Ed, what can I say about you? You are always smiling, cheerful. It's lovely to watch you. And happy birthday. I really don't have a question to ask. I just want to convey my best wishes to you.
Well, thank you
so much.
Thank you so much. Yesterday was so disturbing. I wanted to use my newly minted senior discount card, to go out and party and, you know, like get my 10% off of whatever it was.
At the
The
local
movies were closed. Everything was closed. So it was like really disappointing. I couldn't use my new senior card. But thank you very much to the caller.
I got news for you, Yasser.
What's that?
The senior card doesn't go away.
Good. Good. That's very, very important. Yeah, I got a lot of birthday wishes, so that was very, very nice. Thank you.
Dude has a lot of hair for his age.
That was nice.
That's pretty great.
And thank you both to Fabi and to Anish, who sent me happy birthday wishes as well.
Wow.
Dude, you've got to be concentrating on the tournament.
Yes.
Don't be sending me happy birthday wishes. That's nice. There we have Brian Adams on our production staff.
Somebody from, I think this is RChess and the Reddit website. Hi to everybody. I do browse that pretty often. I can't think of anything cooler than hanging out with Yasser, having some wine and hearing him tell some chess stories. I have to say, that is pretty cool, but be careful because he might drink you under the table.
Whoa, talk about a throwback photo.
Wow.
Okay. Holy smokes! Do you remember where this was from, Maurice?
This looks like
Could it have been
like
the
a deep,
world
like a deep.
IBM? No.
This looks like.
Oh, this is maybe Kasparov Anand at the World Trade Center.
Yeah, look at that. We got a demo
Because
board.
Look at the background too, right? I mean, we could be on the 110th floor of the World Trade Center.
How do you control those pieces? Do you have like a remote or do you have
It was like
It's
a
really
pocket.
difficult.
No, I mean,
It takes skill,
Yes,
Alejandro.
yes.
You got to work really hard to make those pieces work.
We call that old school.
Indeed.
Old school.
Well, happy
Wow.
birthday, Yasser. And thank you for the caller and to all our fans that are awake in Asia. I know that we have plenty of them,
Right.
including world champion Juwan Junas tuning in.
Yes. Oh, very, very, very nice.
Shout out to her and hi. Let's keep going with the games. We do have a couple that we haven't seen.
Right.
So maybe I can direct your attention to the Anish game, see what's going on in that one.
Okay, this came from an English, and as usual, whenever we talk about Alexander Grischuk, he does get his long thinks in the opening. This is actually an unusual move, knight f3.
It's become quite popular since Dingleren has been using it with white and Fabi has been using it with black. And despite the fact that they never have clashed in this particular position, it's like they indirectly clash. Dingleren kept having new ideas with white and Fabi kept having new ideas with black. Yeah.
Right. Echoes of an Alekhine, but also a Sicilian reversed, and you can recapture for the queen, very important to disrupt the flow from white. If you recapture with the pawn, white often just gets an easy game with d3, bishop g2, and so on. But queen takes d5 is the most disruptive, and now black's king is just hanging in the center.
Yeah, you have a powerful pawn on e4, which is also a bit of a target.
Exactly.
You can imagine that white wants to really pressure it. There's not an easy, comfortable way to develop. And you see the knight coming to the rim on a6. And partially that's because it allows the knight to come to c5. But also, if I need to, the bishop can jump to f5 and defend this pawn on e4 before having to move the knight again. So, for example,
So you don't want to step
d7.
on d7
Yes.
square. You keep the bishop open. Okay, so this looks like some heavy-duty theoretical battle going on. Now castles. White is thinking, okay, I'm ready to go maybe to d4 and take advantage of the open e-file, bishop e7. All very logical. There's been a very nice flow to the game here.
And knight e3, we've been told, is a novelty of the game.
I can imagine that d4 in the past, something of this nature,
Has been seen before.
Gotta be, right? Because everything's so very logical. And we can imagine that the queen will go to h5 in a number of variations. Obviously, this bishop on g2 is very good. Though I was about to say we can even maybe start with queen h. It would be in black's favor to try to force the trade. But that did not happen. Knight e3.
Yeah.
This unusual or unusual?
Unusual, but it
Alejandro?
doesn't really change the character of the position, in my opinion. The knight's just well placed on e3, and it's
Exactly.
challenging black to find a move a little bit. You could castle and just say, whatever, right?
And this is where Grischuk went into a 30-minute thing.
But that's the other option, because you have other things. But let me stop you right there. We have breaking news from the key matchup.
Absolutely. And this position, really interesting. Nepo did find knight back to e7. He said, I've got to do it. I've got to stop f5 coming down the board. So much so that after rook to b1, he also played f5. He said, this move cannot be played. Now, this position is really interesting because there's the possibility of takes and takes. And we see white has now conceded this e4 square for black. And black could say, well, now if I can get my knight into e4, maybe get a knight later to f5 and a king here, I'm stemming the tide. It's not so easy to break through. Now, the engines give f5 as a move here. f5, what a move. Wow. The idea being, as I mentioned earlier, to get the knight to f4. That's gifting a whole pawn for this position. Don't forget, this pawn on h5 is also hanging in the position, but the engine wants to get to g6 to e5, maybe get a bishop to f4, play for g4, and just break through on this side. A very dramatic concept indeed. I don't know that MVL will be willing to just start tossing pawns unless he sees that it's just overwhelming, because he had such a great position to start. The fact that you have to start sacrificing pawns in order to actually show that you have dynamic play, but not just be winning, that's going to be tricky to find, I think. And so I expect more action to happen on this side of the board other than this trade. This move f5, a very contentious one. If Nepo gets in king f7 and rook to b8, we might not be saying he's so bad after all. That seems like it's potentially tenable, as he can then just put all his attention on this side. So it seems to be, unless g4 is good, no, g4 doesn't do it either. How does MVL avoid capturing on f6 right now?
Right.
Thank you, Maurice.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Maurice.
But
I see rook b5 on
once
the
I
white
see
side.
f5,
I know.
it's just so visual. The knight coming to the e5 square and then following it up with g4. It's so tempting.
Yeah.
That pawn is so irrelevant, especially the pawn on f4. It's on the way of your pieces. It's not a very precious pawn. It's one of those pawns that you're okay jettisoning. I've seen this concept in the French pretty often, where you just give up something to be able to control e5. The fact that it's the f pawn is unusual, but it's pretty cool. f5, knight f5, knight f4, very visual.
He didn't do it.
Okay,
he did not do it. He played rook b5.
Right.
Again, I think the idea is right, Alejandro, what you're saying. It's something that's typical. It's something that we will have seen, especially as a player with the French from the black side, right? Because you're defending this position a lot. So you've seen enough players with white try to break down your position. If you're white as MVL, you don't see it that much. All your instincts, maybe you've seen the idea, but all your instincts don't scream this idea, because you don't see this position that much in your practice. Nobody's playing you the French too much. Even though he's French, by the way. Maybe they're avoiding him just because of the opening. But I think more so is the momentum of the position. I've got the B file. You've got nothing to do. You just played knight c6, knight e7. Why should I do anything special? I'm just going to beat you up on this side of the board. I have all the advantages. My bishop's going to come back to this diagonal. I should be ahead. So now let me just press. Let me press before your king comes in the game. Now, the fact that this guy can play king f7 to me and bring the rook in, now I feel like it's giddy up time. It's like hurry up before he gets anything going, because otherwise he's going to argue that he's had this time. Now, is he worse here, guys? It still looks like white's ahead, but I'd love to have my bishop already here and my knight someplace.
That's what he's doing. He's played queen a6, then instantly MVL played bishop c1. Still looks pretty bad for black.
Right. It does. It does. But okay, let's continue the line. King f7.
Bishop a3.
Bishop a3. Let's move the rook. I don't want to put it on d6. You're about to attack me. But I'm hitting this. All right, so I'll go here.
Okay, so here's where I was thinking that MVL would be playing for a line like bishop e7 and g4.
Now that's important. You just made all those moves to then throw this in. That looks
right.
With the knight going to g3.
That looks crushing.
That looks a little more scrumptious. You know, you wanted
strong.
to sacrifice the pawn with f5.
Right.
I see this pawn sacrifice coming to g4. And I don't want to trade off all the rooks. If you take twice on b5, I'd probably maintain one of the rooks, maybe something like rook f1.
Although the engine does give takes, and takes.
Yeah,
I think you take on f5 because a lot of the knight endgames are winning.
That's right.
With the pawn on f5, really bad.
I stand corrected. I'll take back my pawn right away.
Yeah, no,
I was
this
thinking the attack.
This looks really, really strong for
white.
For Maxime.
Yeah.
And it looks very logical also because Nepo's plan of king f7, rook h b8, this is what he wants to do.
Yes.
If he doesn't do this, I think the only other plan might be to play something like g6, but at this point it's very counterintuitive.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, black just lost so much time playing knight c6 to e7 and rook h8. It just seems like, okay, maybe f4 is self-blocking kind of a thing. But
So-
once you see g4 and f5,
Certainly an
breaks.
important game. Let's keep looking at the Anish game. We didn't actually get to finish it and see where we are.
So what happened was, it was actually kind of funny. Right here is where Sasha went into one of his patented think tanks.
Of course. It is Grischuk after all.
After 30 minutes of due diligence, he played h5 and he said, "Okay, I'm going after your king." And he said, "Come on, my king's safe enough. You're not going after my king." And then
It's funny how just one move changes the character of the position. Before h5 was on the board and you played d4, you kind of took on d3 and instantly, without hesitation, took with the queen.
right.
But once the pawn is on h5, kind of without hesitation, you take with the pawn. Because you see that king on e8 is not going to castle, therefore it's in the center. Therefore, I
Right.
want my rook on e1.
Exactly.
It's kind of a thought process that happens for us kind of naturally.
Right.
But it's funny how just one little detail of the position.
The pawn being on h5 versus being on h7.
H7.
I see this and I'm thinking to myself, well, if I take with the queen, maybe you play h4 and you put your queen over on h5 and checkmate me down the h file. So I'll take with the pawn so you can't go h5 and checkmate me with the queen.
And on the other hand, I'm actually eyeing rook e1, maybe some knight e5 business. Your king's on e8 after all.
And that's a big tempo against the queen on e5. This is a very nice little maneuver there by Grischuk. Queen d4, getting his queen out of the way. And this wasn't what Anish had in mind. Knight e2, I mean, and queen g4. And I think the worst is over for black after
You think it's equalized?
Yeah, I think, because that knight on c2 went to e3 and kind of came back. If there was already a bishop on f4 and then the knight went to e3, I think it would be much different. And we quickly reached this current position.
It's certainly imbalanced. It might be equal, but how do we even start assessing this position? There's a weakness on d4. Question is,
Yes.
will d5 really bother black? And is it actually a threat?
I think that's what it really boils down to. After all, that is a king on c8.
If I get rook c1
In
and
d5, I
yeah.
can see Anish, who, by the way, boy, talk about having your wind in your sails.
Oh,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you,
Kirill.
Kirill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you, to be gifted a point like that. And here's their lifetime score, pretty balanced.
So
I'm a
many
little
draws.
bit surprised by Anish's success. He actually has a plus scorer against Grischuk. I would have imagined the veteran, the wily veteran that Grischuk is, might have caught Anish as a young man.
But you're not so surprised about the 11 draws.
Not surprised by the 11 draws, but a 2-1. Okay, so here what I'm thinking is, if white can get in the move d5, and let's just put one move on the board to see what might have
A very
happened.
logical move, bishop
Exactly.
d6. The knight is hitting the bishop on g4, which means that you might want to retreat it.
Exactly. I like the bishops, but more importantly, I'm trying to stop d4, d5. Are you playing rook c1? Are you playing bishop c7? Are you playing? What do you think here?
The problem I'm looking at is rook c1 is like one tempo too slow, right? You get your knight to d5, and unless I have something concrete here,
I'll blockade.
yeah. And my bishop on e5 is now getting targeted. I definitely don't want to trade too many pieces and leave myself a weakness.
Maybe playing for b4, b5 with a3, b4, b5. A little too slow?
It's a bit slow. It definitely would jump into mine. It doesn't feel
I mean,
right here.
yeah, if you could get the pawn magically to b5 quite quickly, then but a3 does feel slow. I agree with you wholeheartedly there.
Well, none of this works for white. I will at some point start thinking, do I go d5? Does it actually work?
Like, immediately.
Yeah, but it just feels like I'm giving up a pawn. You can just take everything and...
Well, at the end of the
There's
day,
a rook c1.
There is a rook c1 site. Oops, oh, sorry. I went the wrong way. But as we to figure out all these trades, let's go to Maurice and our marquee matchup.
Yes, and MVL did find this move after queen a6, bishop to c1, and the bishop to a3, and it is clear he's threatening bishop takes e7 with a g4 idea on tap if black doesn't pay attention. So I decided to try a move. I said, could I defend this with g6? Alejandro, you had suggested this move, not in this exact position necessarily. And I said, well, okay, takes. I want you to take. I get my rook into the game, and things are not so bad, are they? maybe I'm fighting here. The engine said, wake up, Maurice. We're playing G4. Immediately cracking the position open. And now if rook to G8, a simple and calm king F2 getting out of the way. And now it's time for smash him taking on this square, taking on F5. What, you talk about visual? What a way to crack a pawn structure to pieces. This is just devastating. And Nepo is stuck right now after bishop A3. You saw him make this maneuver after bishop C1, king F7. I think now the cobwebs are clear, and he's looking, he's going, there's a straight threat to simply crash through my position. Boy, he is in serious trouble. It's no surprise. All the tempo he lost playing rook G8, rook back to H8, king to F8, king to E8, knight to C6, knight to E7. That's 3 moves lost as far as my count.
Right.
MVL saying, you can't do that against me. I'm sorry. I'm just going to crack your position open. That waste of time is not going to work if you're trying to win this tournament.
Wow, big development for sure, Alejandro.
Well, let's take a look. There's one game we haven't looked at all, and we probably should update it. It is Dingler against Kirill Alexenko. We'll go out briefly. It is not the most important.
Again, unfortunately for both of these players, they are wallowing in a shared last. There was a move Queen A5, and I thought that from Kirill this was quite a challenge.
C5.
You played Queen A4 attacking my pawn.
Yeah.
Dude, go ahead. Finish your threat. He didn't take the pawn on A7. He played B4, and now I'll take the pawn on A7. Intriguing idea by Dingler. Knight E4, and we're up to date with the players. By the way, knight C3. What's going on in this game, Alejandro?
It feels pretty unbalanced, but there are a couple of threats. Dingler has already taken on B6.
He has. Yep. Okay, thank you for that.
So what is the material count? Black's down a pawn.
Correct, but
I have knight C3 tricks, and I can at least get my pawn back. I can always play knight C3 and either take on C4 or take on E2 check.
And by the way, that rook on F8 is ready to giddy up and get into the game.
My first impression is that White has to be careful. There's so many tricks in Black's position.
Definitely. I'm looking at the bishop on H3, the queen on B6, hitting the pawn on E6, and the only way I justify that is knight D4, but
I'm almost wanting you to take that pawn on
E6
because it opens up my rook, it opens up my queen. You're going to have some tactical difficulties once you take this pawn.
Okay, but again, I am a materialist, so let's just see. But here, are you taking? This is actually, I mean, under a different set of circumstances, this would be a very intriguing situation.
Yeah, the rook went to E1, not to D2.
Rook on D1 to E1, defending the pawn on E2.
I assume you can take on C4. I don't see an actual problem.
I think you must take on C4. Idea maybe to post up with a bishop on D5.
I don't know about must, but...
Well, I mean, come on. You're pawn down, and you got to get... I mean, there might even just be an A3 move to undermine this knight. Well, maybe...
Yeah, but I'm looking at the initiative, actually. If I can just play E5, E4, I was wondering if you actually run into trouble.
E5, E4. Wow. My goodness.
Okay, it's maybe a little bit too much.
Wow.
But I thought if you take on D5, I take with the knight, I go E4, I go E3.
Okay. I can see that the free day is really charged your battery. You're ready to rock and roll and go on the attack.
Yeah, it's easier to sacrifice pawns when they're not mine.
Well, to begin with, but this would be a great game if these players would be tied for first.
It is a great game.
It is a great game.
It would be a significant
Unfortunately, the game that is for first place is actually a great game too, Maurice.
Yes, and I'm following the thematic, guys, and I'm desperate to defend for Black here. I'm just trying to figure out for Nepo. So I tried another idea after G4, Rook F8. I get it. He keeps swinging pieces back and forth. I do one and put it back. Why not keep up the party? The problem here is there are a couple of moves that are devastating. We can start with Rook take. Actually, let's just do Knight G3, ignoring the fact that this is hanging. Then take and Knight B6. And now Queen H7, and everybody's coming in the party. Yes, I'm trying to hold my position together, please. No, you're not. We don't care. We're just coming straight at you to break the position open. If you take on A4, F to C6, don't take with the queen and let the rook crash in. That's going to be death as everything is going to scream. I'll just show it to you. So you see how bad it is. This king has to go backwards. well, you're just going to get killed, obviously. This is too horrible for words. So you can't let him crash through after F takes E6. But King takes is not possible either, as the other side of the board comes into play, as well as your queen is hanging on A6 to the skewer. I mean, it's just aim, shoot, kill. Like, what the heck? It's just devastating. This idea takes queen. We've been talking about queen A7 for a while, and this crashing through. His position split. White's king is just laughing. All the pawns have moved forward, but it doesn't matter. His king is just sitting pretty and safe. This is an overwhelming advantage, just a crushing attack, and it's playing itself here, and that is why Nepo has not moved. He's sitting here looking at his position.
That's already a story. When Nepo doesn't move, you know he's in trouble.
He's at 27 minutes with 13 moves. That's not so much of a problem. The problem is, how do you stop bishop takes E7 and G4? The threat is so direct. He's looking probably everywhere to see, how can I slow this down? But F5, it doesn't have the same protection. This pawn was just back on the H7 square. You maybe could play G6. Whew, different story. But with this formation, you cannot hold this one pawn together, and this break G4 is hanging over his head. This is busted.
I can't tell you how bad that knight on D7 looks. That
It's
knight on
just
D7 is just
terrible.
not doing anything in the game. By the way, we'd like to, this time in the broadcast, to invite our viewers to give us a call and ask us any questions you would like about the 2020 candidates. And there's the number on your screen to give us a call.
314-361-5465. We'll be here waiting for your call. Ask us any questions about chess.
Sure.
About the candidates, about happy birthdays. Anything you guys want, we're going to be here. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the games. Let's update the Fabi game. Of course, it's an important one for the standings.
Again, this was a game between two players on the 50% score. When we left it right about these parts, we saw this move knight G5. We thought that with this move knight G5, White might be getting a little bit of a nibble thanks to the move C4. That was not Fabi's approach. He actually played the move bishop G5, a move we really didn't pay that much attention to. Then King F7,
and
which
quite
is
a visual move. Going forward.
It protects the bishop,
yes.
it protects the knight on F6, and it basically says to White, okay, go ahead and do your worst.
Knight G3, a retreating move, but it does prepare knight F5. So it does have its own series of ideas.
Maybe on a good day, too, there's a pawn on H7.
And the surprising thing, after C4,
by Black,
encouraging you to take on H7, Fabi didn't do so. It seems like Black had probably more than one way to deal with this.
Okay, go ahead and share that. Because
first of all, I'm scared of G6, but I don't know if it works.
Well, yeah, this was the question, right? Okay, if I take on G6, the king could end up, way out here on a limb, but maybe if you're not mated,
it's kind of
you are a piece up.
If I made it, I'm not doing well.
Exactly. If you get mated, it's bad luck.
Yeah.
If you don't get mated, you're a piece up.
I'm not really sure, actually.
King
feels like Black should be okay. It's kind of hard to mate with two rooks.
Exactly. It's not the most coordinated attacking forces I've seen either. An intriguing line, Fabi said, look, I trust you.
Yeah.
I trust you. I'm going to just drop back with my bishop. Oh, by the way, maybe I've introduced some ideas. Yeah. But a quick break, Maurice, breaking news.
Well, as we anticipated, the hammer has in fact landed, and after rook to H, rook H to B8, bishop takes E7, king takes, played briskly by both players, and here's the move, G4 on the board. If MVL wins this game in style, it will be one of his masterpieces. He'll be so proud of this game, and especially if it's the one that catapults him to challenging Magnus Carlsen for the title. This one is just a massive blow. G4, the one break that White has no more pawn breaks. So it's no surprise that he sees G4. It's just clearly the only pawn break that White has. How else are you going to stream into the position? But you don't need any more because G4 is just such a massive move. The knight can go to G3. You cannot sustain this square F5. Right. His position is collapsing, is Nepo's, and he's at 26 minutes. He's got enough time, but it's not looking like it's going to matter. The position just looks completely busted. Everything in White's favor now. We'll see. Can he come up with a miracle defense?
Wow.
What a huge result
G4.
there. And we do have other breaking news. Well, this is actually from yesterday.
Yesterday's during the FIDE did announce.
The FIDE, International Chess Federation announced that the Chess Olympiad, which is probably the biggest and most important event that we have.
FIDE organizes every 2 years. It's like 180 nations from all over the world meet for their biannual Olympiad, and it has been postponed.
It has been rescheduled for the summer of 2021, similar to the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Wow, that's big news for us. I know that a lot of people look forward to the Olympiad.
Exactly, they do.
I know I do.
I know, me too. I played in 10 Olympiads, and I just loved all of them. They were all very different, but for me, it was, well, sorry to borrow the motto, Genzu no Suma, it's one family.
Yes,
we are
absolutely.
one family, and the idea of going and meeting all of these teams from countries all over the world. And what's really cool is on the opening and closing ceremonies, a lot of the teams wear their national outfits. Yeah. And it's just so cool. It's so visual.
It really is great. It's a great event. It's a great party. It's a great chess festival.
Exactly.
And, well, we're going to have to wait one more year to see it. This year it'll be in Moscow. Well, it's supposed to be in Moscow. Hopefully next year there are no problems hosting it there.
Exactly. And again, we're just taking a look at this fabulous... Oh, Maurice, sorry.
Well, some excitement at this moment, and I echo the Olympiad is just simply a wonderful event, bringing players from everywhere around the world together. You see it. It's the excitement of the people who have been reading about their heroes, the famous players, the Fabianos of the world, and the MVLs, the Nepos,
Alejandro Ramirez.
you know, your fans, and you see them in the magazines, and then you get to represent your country wherever you are, large or small country. You get to go to this event, represent your country, and meet your great chess heroes in mass, not one or two at a tournament where maybe there's only 10 of them. They're 40, 50, the top 50 players in the world basically are there at the event representing all these nations. So a great event. It'll be back, folks. It's postponed, not canceled. So it will be back. In the meantime, this position, this one is huge right now after the move. A3, a quiet move, allowing the move, knight takes E2 and takes on F3, allowing this possibility. The engines give this as better for black.
Oh, yeah.
Despite the fact that he might be going down something here. Well, he's got the two passed pawns, but there's a rook hanging in this position, a bishop on F3. No question about it. White looks like he's in dire straits in a position like this one, but he did play A3 on purpose, allowing this line. So what is his thought here? That in this position, he decided he could play this move. I know the pawn's hanging, but there's another one that seems more crucial in E2. Ding Liren not pleasing his fans in this game. Can he go down to the bottom seed? We're talking the bottom seed of the event. With white he'd be playing?
Oh,
that would just be disastrous. It's bad enough, but that would just completely tumble him into the cellar.
Unimaginable that such a solid player as Ding Liren, who had the greatest year of his career, 2019, should start with 3 losses and in trouble. We have a caller from Canada.
Yes, please give us your name and your question as we keep an eye on the other games.
Yeah, yes. My name is Justin from Ontario, Canada.
Hi, Justin.
I want to say first hi to Alejandro, Maurice, and Yasser, and a special shout out for your birthday as well, Yasser. And thank you for the commentary on the PCL with the Chess Bros. It's been a pleasure to hear you there.
Thank you.
So my question was, we just saw Nepo play the French, and it's usually an open we see in top tier tournaments. So I was wondering if you guys had stories about other players who played different or offbeat or other openings in top tier play. So I was wondering you guys had.
Absolutely. Let me jump right. Well, thank you very much, Justin, for the question, and let me jump right in there. There have been numbers of players who do play offbeat. For me, Vasily Ivanchuk is one of those players who literally, when you sit down the board and you play E4, don't be surprised if he hits you with an Alekhine or a French or a Scandinavian or something else. And I do remember actually back in New York with Maurice in 1995.
I was just thinking of
Gary
that. Yeah.
Kasparov, Vichy Anand, a Scandinavian, appearing not once but twice by Vichy, E4, D5. Like, that was really, really a big
The
surprise.
Scandinavian is the one that you remember. I was thinking about the other example. It was Gary with black.
Who's playing
The dragon.
The dragon.
I mean, the dragon. Who thought the dragon was going to come into
and
play?
it turned out to be a brilliant
choice. Scoring 2 victories, I believe.
Yeah.
Absolutely great.
And the first game he got a draw too, in a really nice way too. So it is surprising and upsetting. And I remember also a wonderful book. I strongly recommend the book. It was My Life in Games by Michael Tal.
Yep.
And Tal was playing in this big interzonal tournament, and he asked the second, well, who do I play tomorrow? And the second said, you play Bent Larsen. Mm-hmm. And what color am I? Oh, you will be white, Misha. And what will I play? Said Misha. E4. Okay. And what will he play? Said Misha. I don't know. Okay, let's play some cards. So they decided that because with Bent Larsen, you had no idea.
It's the same.
He would play as black.
Even nowadays, when you go to a big open tournament and you face Vasily Ivanchuk, they say, that's such a nice pairing.
Right.
Because you just go for a walk. You have no idea what he's going to do. There's no point in preparing at all.
Who do you think of these candidate players as a player who could pull off some really unusual opening and take somebody completely out of their prep? Who is the most likely to do that?
None of these are players that really strafe too far from their preparation. They sometimes incorporate new ideas.
Okay.
But if you can go down the list, they're actually pretty solidly stuck to their opening.
MVL ain't moving.
E4. I mean, MVL has been playing E4, the Niner for the Grunfeld.
Maybe the worst case of all of these plays.
Jan, he's playing the French again, but it was something that he used to use, not this variation specifically, but it was part of his repertoire. It kind of went down a bit with the popularity of the French because French is currently considered to be suffering, as we can see.
Grischuk maybe for a perk?
Grischuk, no.
No.
I mean, Grischuk plays Berlin 95% of the time nowadays. Wang Hao plays Petrov pretty much exclusively. Anish is pretty solidly an E4, E5 player. And I guess
although he does dabble in the Sicilian a little bit.
Dabbles in the Sicilian less and less.
Okay.
Unfortunately for the world of chess.
Kirill is so young.
Kirill we don't know. He's kind of a wild card in many ways, not just because he is the wild card of the organizers.
And Ding is a pretty fixed player.
Out of these players, they're all pretty fixed. You go down a couple of notches and you bring somebody like Rapport, then you're going to see a completely different thing, right?
Now there is a guy that can produce
yes.
some new ideas. Maurice, how is MVL doing?
He's doing fine.
Très
bien, as they say in French. Très bien. This position, rook takes b5, a takes b5, rook takes, and we've seen this line before. F5 is going to drop, and he has captured on F5. The breakthrough has indeed occurred. A knight will land on G3 at some point. This pawn is going to go no matter what you do. That's dropping somehow, or he'll capture, and it'll be these pawns that will be marching down the board. This king is much safer, maybe even hide on E3 if it needs to. This king, though, even though it looks like it could get back home to G8, looks like it's not going to happen. Too much is going to be going on in the center of the board, so we're waiting for a move here. We're also waiting for a move in this game between Dinglerin and Alexenko, and we thought that, it looks like Kirill could just play knight takes E2 and go for the bishop takes F3 line, but it looks like he's been thinking for, I think, 12 minutes on this position. 15 now, 15 since I've been talking. This 7 minutes left to make 14 moves. It's not like you have some nice, crystal clear waters ahead. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do here. I'm supposed to do this. Position clarifies itself. This is still murky. And he sees his E6 pawn, no doubt, after this knight takes E2 capture. He sees that's going to drop. He thinks maybe this might drop. Is he thinking that one too? It doesn't look bad for him. It's easy for us to say. We're not worried sitting at the board trying to survive here. But he has been thinking down to 7 minutes, guys. 14. I think actually he hasn't made his 26th move yet. So a lot of moves to go. Dinglerin might not be dead just yet, given that his opponent is in severe time pressure.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you for that. And we have another phone call.
Just to clarify, he isn't dead even if Alexenko does find all these moves. He was just worse, right?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
Queen G5 gave Black the
initiative. Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
We do have a phone call you're mentioning from Michigan, so let's go right into it. Please give us your name and your question.
Hi, my name's Mark, and I was wondering, I know Nepo has a good score against Magnus. I know Fabi has a pretty good score as well. But I'm wondering, to what extent can a clash of styles affect a match in a game of complete information?
That's a great question.
Well, and it's one of the great conundrums of the chess world, that it very, very often happens that you get three world-class players, and player A consistently defeats player B. And player B consistently defeats player C, and player C consistently defeats player A. So somehow, stylistically, you can get that situation where one player dominates another player, and yet mathematically, these results are not supposed to happen. They're outlying results.
But they do happen.
And yet they do happen.
I think Vichy explained it very well in his book. He said when such a thing happens, it just means that in certain positions, in certain aspects of the game, your opponent has a better understanding than you do. And you need to sit down and figure out, why is he better than me at these kind of positions. These positions I'm losing, these positions I'm losing. Clearly I'm being stirred into the kind of things where I have a bad score against you. Stylistically, this is not working for me. How can I remedy it? Either by strafing away from it, the way that Magnus used to do. He strafed away from complications, from opening preparations when he was a younger player, or by just getting better at it, which is also something Magnus did. Nowadays, complicated game, Magnus says, yum, yum, let's give me the attack.
Right.
But it's certainly important. Now, to clarify what the caller was asking, a game of perfect information, what is that? That means that you can see your opponent's
cards.
Yeah. For example, a game like poker is a game of incomplete information.
Right.
Or
you're guessing what.
You're guessing, you're trying to deduce by logic what your opponent has, but you don't actually know. Here, you don't know what your opponent's plans are, but you see his moves on the board. It's called a game of perfect information.
Exactly.
And they're actually very interesting game theory differences between those types of games and the ones where you don't actually know what your opponent's doing.
And for example, another game like that would be the game of Go.
Right.
Very similar, but also very, very complicated game. You can see what your opponent's moves are, and you can guess what their strategy might be, but you can't be certain how deep the game can go. I just wanted to jump right back to the Fabi game because we never finished.
And we have a million moves on the board.
I know. We never got a chance to really finish where the game stopped. After the move c4, there was no bishop h7 ideas.
No, the bishop retreated,
The
actually.
bishop just retreated. The pawn looks like a very decent move. And here, I really like this move by Fabi, a4. Why? Because, well, okay, I'm not a big fan of trading. I just like the idea of getting off the back rank mate. Fabi surprised me. He actually captured. Personally, I would have rather kept that tension. Maybe it's not a big deal. Knight f5 attacked the bishop on e7. The bishop on e7 moved, and I think we have some more moves.
Oh, we have a lot more moves.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Sorry. This. Let's just go back. I mean, they really went fast. Times are
perfectly fine for both.
For both. And they went bishop f3.
Takes. Oh, everything came off the board. And
I mean, it was just a vacuum cleaning.
Yeah,
I mean, that just occurred.
Unless I'm losing c4, this looks extremely drawish.
Well, I can imagine one way you potentially could lose c4.
So black does have to defend against this threat.
The desirable rook b7, unfortunately, has a drawback. The b7 square is protected.
So I do have to find a move here for black.
Right.
Because knight d6, knight takes c4 might just be... Well, it's 2 extra passed pawns. I don't really.
And if I try to, for example, get out of that, first of all, the bishop on g5, while it's hanging at the moment, I could any move with the knight, by the way, will protect the bishop. I don't know. Maybe it's just time to go on the counterattack with. I like pawns.
It does feel there's too little material left And the opposite color bishop so many times are just
that
gonna force a
element
draw.
also. Yeah,
It feels extremely
more,
drawish to me.
It feels like it. Okay, Maurice, jump in. You've got a game that also we haven't paid enough attention to.
Well, it's time to pay attention to it now because absolute Hoover, the vacuum. Somebody told the vacuum cleaner person to show in and just start vacuuming everything off. But take a look. I want you guys at the end of this to evaluate this position. That's a hint that be careful how you judge. And look at this, D5. What's the one square you cannot push a pawn to?
Right.
Like, you got a knight, you got a knight, you got a bishop, you got a pawn. I got 5 things on that square. That's not going to happen. Except it did, and now watch the massive exodus of pieces as the trades happened. Absolutely incredible. Rook C1 check, King D7, Rook C7, and all these moves were played at blitz speed, by the way, by Grischuk and Anish. And Rook takes B7, and it looks like Anish said, hey, I sacked a pawn. I came down, crashed in on the 7th. I took the pawn back on B7. I'm about to take your pawn on A7. This is sweet. How can you blame me for playing chess like this? And Grischuk instantly, after all that, dropped down Rook to C8, saying you can have this pawn on A7 if you like. I'm the one with all the activity. If you take, I'm going to play the move Rook to C2. I'm hitting a pawn. If you defend it, I'm going to play Bishop C5. I'm hitting your F pawn. Give me that guy back. If you try to defend, I'm going to play D4. I've got the king, the active king. I've got the active rook. I've got the bishop. I've got a passed pawn. Guess who's actually winning after your sweet little combination with D5? It is black who is better here. Black who's playing for this move. Rook C8 is going to freeze, and it has frozen Giri in his tracks after forcing the line at the end. This point, Rook C8, the tail end of the combination is poisonous, guys. What an amazing piece of calculation by Grischuk to allow this line and know that at the end, he's the one who's going to be better.
Well, it's not just a calculation, it's judgment.
It's a difficult thing to grab a position that's as complex in the middle game.
Right.
Take off all of the pieces and say, the end game, how is it? Because initially, that rook on b7, I think how many of us would have fallen for that? You see,
I love that active rook.
worst case scenario and equal. I would have never thought white is worse in that position, but you put it on the board, and I'm starting to think, yeah,
well, there's
rook
a pass
C8, there's a pass
pawn
D pawn.
on-
My king on G1 would rather be anywhere else. Would have had it on D3, and suddenly it starts to dawn on you that your position is not very good.
Exactly. Time to play bishop E3 and maybe seize the draw. We have another caller, this one from New York.
Yes.
New York. Hello, caller, and welcome to our show. Your name and question, please.
Hi, guys. How you doing? It's Charlie from New York. How you
Hi,
doing?
Charlie.
Good. Happy birthday, guys.
Thank you.
My birthday Saturday. I'm going to be 63, so so welcome to the 60 Club. But anyway, my question is going to be about Nepo. Nepo's a great player, but he has a tendency sometimes to play wild, like he did against Anand, where he lost his rook. And do you think that he'd give a harder time to Magnus than, let's say, Fabi was more solid? Or do you think he'd blow up because he played crazy and wind up losing? You know, because he could do either one. He could be great, or he can go, he could be a wild, loose cannon. And sometimes that could affect Magnus because he'll be playing wild moves. So who do you would think style-wise would have a better chance?
Well,
as far as not talent-wise, I'm talking style-wise. Who do you think would have a better chance?
Thank you, Charlie, for the question, because somehow that kind of goes hand in glove with the information,
Right.
the players, how they match up against each other. I think we're going to be having this conversation quite a bit as we get closer to the end of the tournament.
Unless
Who is the
MVL
best challenger?
Yeah, unless MVL has something to say about that,
Unless
right?
MVL breaks up the party. But briefly, how, in your view, would they match up in a world championship? We know Nepo has a huge score.
I have the feeling that
against,
Nepo
Magnus.
is a very dangerous tournament player and extremely dangerous knockout player. I mean, extremely. That's the guy you hate playing on a knockout.
Two-game match.
Two-game matchup, so fast, so
Rapid
resourceful, blitz,
guy.
rapid, so
Ooh.
strong. You can't predict his moves.
Right.
In a classical
12-game
world
championship match.
I mean,
He's not suited for it.
He's not suited for it. That's not his type of chess.
Okay.
He could change. He would have plenty of time to prepare. But if you ask me who is a great match player, I don't immediately think of Nepomniachtchi.
No, I would even think of Anish as being a match player that maybe Magnus wouldn't be so happy. Jump right in here, Maurice. How do you think Nepo would do in a 12-game match? With Magnus, of course.
I think you guys nailed it. He would have to sort of just get the bugs out of his game. When you're playing against a Magnus Carlsen, you better not have hiccups. Magnus doesn't mess around. He finds your weaknesses, he pressures you, he finds your weakness, and then he just pounds you. And I just don't see, he'd have to, I don't see the refinement level in his game. He's a bit wild, he's almost like tall in that respect. But Magnus, we're talking about, I just don't see him ideally suited, although he has a plus score in Magnus over time. So we can argue, yeah, whatever. I got the plus score. What are you talking about? But I think just those a little bit of uneven moments in his game. But who knows? He might catch a streak on Magnus, hit Magnus a couple of games, and then Magnus is potentially reeling. I don't see it, though. I do believe that guys like Fabi, of course, has proven it. Giri, I thought, was really a great point you made there, Yasser. Giri is super solid. I don't think the world really wants to see that match between Giri and Anand, although the Netherlands might.
Of Magnus.
Magnus, sorry. Yeah, Magnus versus Giri sounds too solid. Sounds like maybe another 12 draws taking place because Giri is just so solid. But I think this gentleman, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Magnus, what are we guaranteed? Some Najdorfs and some Grunfelds.
Right.
We will be guaranteed some sharp play, and you know how stubborn MVL is. I'm going to fix my number every time I'm going to play these sharp openings. That would be fun. I don't know if it would work out in his favor, given that his Grunfeld has been under heavy pressure from the players lately, but certainly would be fun. By the way, we just want to update this. This is the big dog matchup in this round after all. And knight g3, no, I don't want to take your pawn and allow maybe some potential queen exchange offers. No, I don't need to. I'm taking that with check. And queen b6 was played in the position. Queen b6, and now he can capture. I'm not sure they made any moves as yet. No, MVL is sitting on that position as he can capture on f5. And there's no way he wants a queen exchange here. Your king is too vulnerable. These pawns, his knight, he's not worried about his own king. Although he will have to pay attention if this queen does show up and start to do some things. But a knight here looks so sweet. Knight's going to be able to protect the king against Papets. This knight is very passive, as we pointed out. And there's this passed pawn. But there's this one as well. So we know black is in deep trouble here. But certainly MVL has to take some technical corners that he has to deal with. This game, though, rook c8, Giri didn't think much at all. He took here and allowed a rook to c2. And now we see the move bishop to e3 played. You're not allowed on this diagonal. Forget about that. I can give you my pawn back. So we would anticipate a move like rook takes, although the Indian's giving bishop to f6 as better to prepare d4. Well, that looks pretty direct. Yeah. So now Grischuk has slowed down again, 16 minutes to make 12 moves. He got a bunch of moves in, but it still didn't matter because he spent so much time on h5 and other moves. But this one is absolutely still pretty interesting. Now, these are players at 50%.
Yeah.
So a victory would be huge.
It feels like they need to get those victories. MVL has taken on f5 with the knight, which also looked pretty tempting with check. Of course. Hopefully.
Well, I was about to say, in that game, I liked the pawn sacrifice by Grischuk, the activity, and I think he should just continue with it, by the way, with bishop f6. I had pulled up the game of Dingler, and I just go here. I mean,
that game might finish in a second.
Yeah, I was going to say that, for a pawn, and again, we're talking about this active king. It's all about this passer. You play d5, and that active king can really take apart. I don't see any issues here for black. Black, I don't think there's any danger of losing.
I think black's playing for the win.
Yeah.
I just don't know how seriously.
For the edge. Yeah, exactly. And so I see this as incredible judgment by Alexander.
Excellent transition into the endgame.
Right.
That being said, if you're a Giri fan, I wouldn't be too worried yet. It does feel like white should have this under control. Something like
closer to a draw.
Closer to a draw than it is to a black victory.
Right. Rook a4 and maybe king f1 and just get ready to kind of like corral the pawn.
Right. Right.
before it becomes really too dangerous.
But it would be a defensive task.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again,
Yeah, if I were playing Yasser Seirawan, I wouldn't be happy here.
Again, I really do want to. I mean, are we completely convinced that Jan is toast here? I mean, it does feel like it is MVL's game.
I did want to put it on A2. I thought it was more flexible.
Pardon me. Let's say here.
Just because Queen G2 might be surprisingly difficult to meet.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the flexibility. I just don't want to. I just don't want to fall victim to one of those. No.
Actually, in that case, Queen B3 is a real
Queen
problem.
B3 is really good. You throw away all your advantages.
I can't do this because of Queen
Oh,
B3.
that's so sad. You don't want to. You don't want to fall for the old double attack with a check.
That is a pity.
But I thought that on a good day, if I could go like Queen A3 check, somehow in concert with this knight, and Maurice even mentioned that you could maybe even waddle your king up to E3, and somehow you're avoiding a lot of perps. I really think white's for choice. I just didn't know how big it is.
What do you mean? You just said all the reasons why white is
because this Queen B1 counterplay, there is still, as you mentioned,
Well, we still have to find a move for black here. And
I'm
having a bit of a trouble.
Yeah, you and me both. I was about to ask you for a recommendation.
The thing is, I'm one move away from just making all my dreams come true. King on anywhere on the second rank so that I can play Queen attacking G7, whether it is A3, E7 or through G1, it doesn't matter. Once I'm attacking the pawn, it just feels kind of crushing. I would put it on H2 personally. But
okay, so H2 personal choice.
But I think
and
F2
you're
might also be
thinking
good.
that you've escaped this check, and now you're eyeballing, like, let me just put a move on the board. What can I move, kind of move? You're eyeballing
Queen G1.
How to get to this guy.
Yeah, Queen G1 looks crushing. You still have a check on B2, but I can now hide on H1. And I will checkmate you.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are issues definitely for Jan, our tournament leader, is he's really being challenged.
Yes, it does look really bad.
Oh, be careful, guys. What was your move?
We went King H2 or something. I went
Queen
A5.
A1, A5.
A5.
A5, Queen.
I was just throwing a move on the board just to
then we
try
wanted
to
to
show
play
some
King
ideas.
H2.
Right here, the move is being given is Queen B3 after King H2.
King H. Ooh, I like
B3?
that move because after Queen
Because
B3,
now Queen C2 is again on tap. Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, I like that move too.
Exactly.
So some resources still here for Jan.
But the thing is, what's kind of deceptive about the position actually is
yes, please.
and you have to note it. What do we have? We have a queen going to A3. Queen A1's the obvious move.
Right.
Queen A3 looks strong. The idea of bringing the queen on this line also looks strong. But the idea that's the most fundamental in this position that actually crashes through the most efficiently is knight E3.
Okay, that makes sense also.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the guy.
Yeah.
All this is fluff and tactics and maybe I'll mate you somehow and all that. But if I go after this thing right here, you have all kinds of conniptions and twists and the things you have to do to try to defend this pawn, because the knight will go to E3, a queen can later go to A5. The king will simply march up and say, my pawns are protecting me. I can end up on F3 with my knight on E3. That'll be more than enough. My queen will always be threatening things, and then at some point, F5 is going to come, and E6 is going to come, and your position is just going to completely collapse.
Exactly.
So the real thing MVL has to do is consolidate. He has found Queen A1. It is on the board, but this is the move. Just drop back and ask black, what are your pluses? I see your passed pawn. It's going nowhere when my queen hits here. I just consolidate everything, and then I just bum rush you, and you're going to fall apart. And this is an easy, easy win for MVL, as there is no real counterplay for black if you don't let him play some tricky take off one of your pieces. Once he consolidates, that's Johnny ballgame.
No, it certainly looks crushing.
I was about to say, before we take on break, I'd just like to share one quick story. A couple of years ago, Jordan Van Forest was invited to play in the Dutch Championship because Sergei Tiviakov declined his invitation. So this very young boy, Jordan Van Forest, one of the lowest seeds, was invited into the Dutch Championship, which he convincingly won. MVL, gets this last-minute, last-second invitation, and should he come through today,
oh, that's huge.
he would be in first place, even though it's a tie for first,
It would be
because of
head-to-head.
the head-to-head tiebreaker. But we're going to take a short break. On the other side of this break, we're going to be back for more action of Round 7 in the 2020 candidates.
I want to thank you all for joining us today for what is certainly an historic moment.
We're privileged at Ascension to have a mission with a capital M, and it's who we are, and it's about giving back to the community.
It's a win for the Champions Tour and our players. It's a win for the fans and the spectators.
Be surprised. Be intrigued. Be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
St. Louis University is celebrating its 200th anniversary. Offering world-class education in the heart of St. Louis, SLU attracts students and professors from around the globe. In 2015, SLU partnered with the St. Louis Chess Club to start a top-tiered collegiate chess team. On the very first year of the team's inception, SLU obtained second-best university at the Pan American Intercollegiate Chess Championships. Higher purpose, greater good. St. Louis University.
Russian superstar Yan Nepomniachtchi is now atop the leaderboard. He was not considered one of the top 2 favorites in the event, but his scintillating win against Anish Giri, followed by some powerful blows against the 2 Chinese players, has now put him in a beautiful situation moving forward. Will he be able to close the deal, or will he collapse under the enormous pressure? We will see as this star tries to bring home the possible challenger's title to his country. Well, that was an earlier recording, to be sure, and it looks like it's B. The answer is B. We said, will he do well or will he collapse? Well, right now, Queen E6, Knight G3, Queen G4 has been played, but this does not seem like it's going to bring home the bacon as a simple King G2. It's something that we know famously when a king and a knight are in this formation, it's almost impossible to deliver perpetual check. This is a very famous setup, the knight next to the king. Sometimes the knight is on one side, like on an F2 square, as well as the same thing. It's very tricky to get that diagonal where you're perpetuating this king. This one is the same. If you take on this square, queen takes on A7, and this queen crashing through is much more effective than this one. This knight is not helping its king. Well, he could play this move, king to A7, but it looks like white can reset everything. And now, how do you defend the position when the queen emerges into... Actually, the Indian's even giving this move. Seems a little surprising to me after this. Oh, the point is, yes, you're going to get to D6 by force. I want to just go to D6 immediately, but the queen will get in. You're just in trouble here. What to do as the queen crashes into the party? D pawn drops, C pawn will drop, everybody will drop. And even if you could play for queen D2 and get this one, these pawns are just way too strong. And someday this knight will come back to F5. Folks, what I'm describing is just devastation. Black's position has no chance of holding together. This one should end in a few moves. I don't think he'll last very long after king to G2. He's taking his time, properly so. Let me go back to this moment here. Properly so is MVL. You know, when you have the fish on the hook, they're on the hook. You ain't got to rush. You're on the hook. Let me just be patient and find the perfect move at each point. He doesn't want to see any tricks, but once he finds King G2, he plays it. There's nothing for Black to do. I'll show you how crazy it is. I saw a line with the engine saying, just play Knight F6 and just give that one up too. Well, you can't. It's just completely busted. This position after takes. This was the position actually where Knight F6 was suggested by the engine as what else are you supposed to do? Because this one is over. We might see less than 5 moves and this one be resigned.
Wow, and that
huge blow open the tournament, right?
We do have 2 results while we were on break.
No kidding.
Yes, as Anish Giri has drawn that endgame against Alexander Grischuk, we did feel the white could hold that one without any problems, and Dingleran has drawn against Kirill Alexenko. So this is our current standings, with of course that key matchup still pending. Alexander Grischuk and Anish Giri currently tied for, well, second place with Maxime, but we do expect a result out of him. With 3.5 points, Fabiano Caruana is still playing against Wang Hao, an endgame that is actually becoming more and more sharp.
All right.
And those are the 2 games that we have. Let's jump right into him. Maurice has already given us an explanation on how MVL is crushing it, so let's see how Fabi is doing. Of course, a lot of American fans in this broadcast. Something's going on, and I'm kind of wondering, this should end in some sort of draw, but there are some sharp lines.
I thought this was a very good move, by the way, by
C3.
Wang Hao. I thought that really actually, in some ways, put the onus on Fabi to force or make the draw. Like, it didn't feel to me like Wang Hao was the one on the, let's say, defensive side. Yeah, I mean, it feels like Wang Hao, in fact, is the one on the sunny side. And that actually precipitated bishop takes, king takes.
And now I think Fabio has a pretty key decision. He could play knight d4.
Okay.
And that looks kind of equal to me. You'll prepare rook f5. You probably have to take on b2 because I can't.
And now you're threatening to make a queen, by the way.
So I don't have time to take your bishop with rook f5 and rook takes f3.
So
and this would probably end in a draw.
And king takes b2.
But I was wondering, can you try knight e3, or is that asking too much of the position?
Let's have a look-see.
Only one move here for black, because otherwise rook f5 check, rook takes f3 trick will still pick up your bishop. You do have to move that rook from f1 to f2.
Okay, fair enough.
I hope.
Excuse me.
I'm not blundering
Okay,
anything.
but on the other hand, now, as we know, grandmasters hate to put themselves in a pin.
Yeah.
You wanted to, I assume, continue with this?
I'm actually not sure what I want to do because I would love to keep my rook on the f-file, but it doesn't seem like I can actually do that effectively.
Right, so something like this where you would go, ha-ha, it's very nice. Now here you'll understand why I didn't throw in the move c3 takes b2, king takes b2. With your king on a2, I can break the pin and turn the tables with bishop d5 check. So that's why you're not anxious to play
I'm not
rook
anxious to put my
f4.
rook on f5 yet. I wanted to play b4 and just see what is this endgame.
Wow, okay, that's...
Fast pawns must be pushed. I wanted to go king b3, king takes c3 in a good day. You can't take on h2, let's remember that.
Right. Here, rook takes h2, walks into that rook f5 check file. So here we might be playing some
Well, you can't take on h2.
I was so anxious. Oh my goodness, sorry. I was so anxious. So I have to make even a more quiet move.
Maybe this is a draw, but this kind of positions after, for example, I don't know, knight d5 or something like this. If you take on d5, then we calculate.
This is actually getting really, really sharp suddenly. I thought I was going to have a nice, quiet life in some easy drawn rook endgame, but you can see, you know, I'm going to have two pass pawns. You're going to have two pass pawns once you collect c3. Your
like
pawn's a
white is
little faster.
But is it enough?
Man,
that's tough.
That is tough. And funnily enough, you somehow you wrested the initiative.
Yeah.
The advantage.
But we do have a caller from Russia, certain Anish Giri.
Forget it. Forget about him. Let's get something really interesting. Anish, hey.
Hello, Yasser.
Nice to see
happy
you.
birthday, Yasser. I heard you turned 60. My God.
Keep it down. Tell everybody.
Dangerous stage nowadays, huh?
I know. I mean, I'm trying to get I'm trying to take advantage of the senior discounts. Everything's closed in the Central West End.
The day you are a senior earlier, I believe, right? You can play the senior championship even.
Yeah, they changed the dates a little bit.
He has received an official invitation, and we're waiting for his confirmation.
Right. Anish, jump right in. Tell us about your game today.
I was not too thrilled with the position I had because I got this stupid isolated pawn. Pretty much by force out of the opening.
I apologize.
Yeah, after he went d4.
Yeah.
And I think I should. I mean, I probably I should try to keep the queens, but I'm not sure I can actually. I didn't see how I should do this because I have some initiative here because I'm up in development a little bit, but I don't. I mean, knight c2. I don't really remember the move queen g4. Now I was thinking maybe I should play some queen e1, but I was not so sure about various things. I mean, it continues. For example, there's h5, h4, h3, queen g6, g4, queen d3 as one thing. Then maybe I can go g5 there.
Wow.
If he takes on c2, he gets trapped, but maybe he doesn't take on c2.
Yeah, because you take
also,
on c2,
he's got
on f6, and bishop e4. Let's just put that on the board for the viewers.
Whoops.
That was sort of the line why I got excited about it. But then he has got some knight c5 options at various points.
Before you continue, Anish, sorry, we just want to update the game as we see is the key game of the round. Queen takes f4 and queen takes a7 has been played. We do have this between Lagrave and Nepo, and we're looking at king e7, queen c7. Looks like complete decimation as well as queen d6 check. Too strong. We'll keep an eye on this one. Please, Anish, continue with your game.
So you were thinking about queen e1, Anish, h4, h3, queen g6, g4, knight c5 as a possible line of play.
Yeah, to be honest, there were so many lines I wasn't really sure about anything at this point. I was just, I mean, black has lots of options instead as well. I mean, he can also play it safe if he wants. After queen e1, he can even drop back with queen d7 or something if he wants it safe. But then, of course, I probably play queen e1. I don't know. He's got lots of options, and he can also. I mean, he can play queen e6 if he wants. I really don't know. There are a lot of moves. I thought bishop f4 is reasonably clever because I'm I'm taking with the A rook, which is also, I'm not sure why it's so good actually, but at least I'm developing pieces fast, and then maybe if I get d4, d5 quickly, maybe I will be slightly better because of my advantage in development, but somehow it didn't really materialize in the game.
Sorry, I just wanted to interrupt you and take you back just to a moment here. It was here that Sasha went into his patented deep think, and he came up with the move h7, h5. When he went into such a tank, did his eventual decision of h5 surprise you at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to be honest, 93 I think is a new move, but I'm not sure if he was in book. Very possibly he was trying to recollect it, because I think to play h5 and then after d4 take queen d4.
Let me just interrupt you for a moment, and Maurice has a breaking news for us. Maurice?
Yes, we do have a bizarre tactical opportunity right now that has appeared on the board. Look at this, rook check, rook f5 check, king e6, and king a3 by Fabi. And look at this. You don't see this every day. He hasn't played it yet, but cb2.
This is breaking news?
King takes, hold on.
Rook c2.
And
nowadays,
rook c2.
Nowadays,
Yeah.
guys.
Well, I'm just saying,
year 2020, and you are telling me that this is breaking news. That you can win a pawn and go into dead drawn.
I hear you.
Endgame. I mean, this is breaking news, really.
I hear you. I know you don't want to be interrupted when you're giving a lecture.
No, I want to be interrupted, but maybe I thought you found the cure for COVID-19 or something. It's only just some little cheapo leading to a drawn position. I don't really know what's the fuss about.
Well, Anish.
Well said. Touche, Anish. Touche indeed. Well said.
Has turned into a drawn position.
A drawn position.
Please, next time you interrupt my great ideas.
You better be better than that.
All right. I'll make sure it's a queen sack leading to mate next time I interrupt you, Anish.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
So you were saying that h5 did not surprise you, or
no? But on a serious note, this sacrifice in the game of Fabiano, it just leads to a totally drawn position, right? So I don't think it's much.
Breaking news. That was great, by the way. So h5.
Breaking the point, I think it's going to have the two parts.
Give us your knee-jerk reaction when you saw the move h5. What did you think?
No, I knew that h5. I knew that h5 is a very fine move. I just didn't think it's a likely because you can also play castle as well, which is much more natural.
Right.
And okay, h5. I mean, after d4, ed. You think also you'd expect black to play h4, I thought, and then I'd go d4 but this move queen d4 is like, I thought it was way too subtle to be found. But
he found it.
In a way,
It's strong.
Yeah, it's a good move. I mean, I have to misplace one of the knights in order to kick him out, so it's a good move.
Yeah, no, you have to respect the subtlety.
Yeah, there was one thing towards the end. Let's say a nice nuance after takes bishop g4 and bishop e6, all that with knight c7. Yeah. Here the thing is, if I don't play d5, but if I make some move, I can, let's say, play a3. After which, if he plays knight d5, no, better example, maybe rook e1 instead of a3 as well. Rook e1, if he plays knight. Now knight d5 he cannot play, but also after a3, knight d5, I've got this bishop h3 moves in some lines after taking everything.
I understand what you mean. Gotcha.
So I was sort of hoping to use this little tactical opportunity to get something here, but he doesn't have to rush with. I've got bishop h3 here maybe. After bishop e6, maybe I have something.
And this is where you indicate that the move rook e1 might give you a nibble.
Yeah, but the problem was that I thought he can, let's say after a3 or after rook e1, he's got bishop d6, I thought.
Against either a3 or rook e1,
or any
move.
Actually. Any move, he goes bishop d6. If I go bishop g5, he's got bishop e7 back, for example. Then I was thinking maybe I have knight f5 or something, but then he can take it.
And then traps your rook.
And then maybe bishop e6. Yeah, it's not directly trapped, but I was not sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be an issue. Well, so you decided on d5 eventually.
Yeah, I wanted to see this endgame transition.
Yeah, I missed.
This one that you played.
It felt wrong, to be honest, with the king on e6 for me, but I missed this move. I mean, I was focused on takes bishop c5. And then I was trying to find an advantage after bishop c5, and I just forgot he can sacrifice the a pawn altogether. That was very convincing. I mean, here I'm not fighting for anything. If anything, I shouldn't be ambitious here because the deep one is really coming fast.
Exactly.
Yeah, we thought that you should try to make the draw starting from here.
Exactly.
Well, it's not difficult, of course. Once you realize you are not playing for advantage, then it's pretty easy to stay solid. But yeah, that was not really the plan.
This is one of those cases, Anish, where both of you had calculated this very long-winded combination from d4, d5, but then at the very end, it's a question of judgment and who stands better. And it's easy for you to think that, well, with your rook on b7, you can't be worse, and maybe you can press a little, and then suddenly he plays rook c8.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I felt it's not so great, but I didn't see, I thought if he goes bishop d6 next, it will be a completely dead position, and I thought at least here I might not be better, but well, maybe he will drift, because I have long-term potential. I've got the outside passer, I can bring the king to d3, so I didn't feel like I'm doing very well, but I thought, okay, I'm not risking to lose, and let's see what happens.
Exactly. Now, of course, the big day today is this game between MVL and Nepo.
And maybe we can pull up that board just so the viewers can also keep an eye on it.
It's already +6 here, so I'm surprised Maurice is not interrupting us yet.
Yes, and it's been a very, very huge advantage for MVL, and likely he's going to win it. That will blow the tournament wide open. How do you feel about your current situation?
Well, I think what I see so far is that basically, as long as I start picking up more points, I will be fighting for it. So I'm not worried about the other players at all. I mean, I believe in them, and I believe the leaders will mess it up if needed. But the thing is that I have to start winning even more games because, you cannot win the tournament without winning many games yourself. So I think I should be, in the second half, I should be, hopefully getting more points. And then once I do that, I think I'll be in the mix.
Well, this is your second candidates. You got your first tournament victory in the candidates, and you said you felt your heart skip a beat, and you checked with the doctor. You're still okay. Right?
Yes,
you can afford to
fine.
have a few. You can afford a few more victories without suffering any major injury to your heart.
Yes, no, definitely. That's the plan. Yeah, I think health-wise, I'm ready for more wins.
Okay.
And, so let's see. Yes.
Very good.
Anish, I did have a question. I wanted to echo a question of one of the callers that came to us, and he was asking specifically about Nepo's style in a match format. Do you think that Nepo is better suited for these kind of tournaments where surprises are a little bit more prevalent than in a match format, especially in some kind of knockout? Or do you think Nepo would be able to adjust very well and play a great match for the world champion if he qualified?
Well, it's really very early to tell. I mean, certainly if he will win this tournament, despite today's setback.
Yeah, just as a hypothetical, not necessarily saying from this tournament.
No, I mean, in general, if someone qualifies for the match, that means he's a very, very good player, very good under the pressure as well, because to win the candidates takes a lot. So I think any player who wins the candidates undergoes sort of transformation, which makes him automatically ready to fight for the world title in some sense.
Like so I believe,
yeah, obviously. I mean, in that sense, I think any player here, once he wins this tournament, yes. I mean, we saw with Sergei Karyakin, he was not really, he had actually a bad year, and then he won the candidates, and suddenly he was completely ready for the match, and he gave Magnus really a run for his money. So I think certainly, if Jan wins, he is ready, but if he will not win, he will not be ready either. So
we saw Gelfand do the same thing as well against.
Absolutely.
Against Anna.
Exactly. I mean, once you go through this grueling cycle and you come on top, you've got so much prep, confidence, and everything that you are ready for the match, I believe.
Well, very good. Well, Anish, we want to thank you so very much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you on the air. I know a lot of the players have stated that they feel very uncomfortable, but I just want to say that for us, coming in, this tournament is a real respite from our self-isolation. We look forward
I think
to your games.
I think the players should also not be too ungrateful, because I mean, right now, if we speak about the situation in the world and safety, I mean, I don't know. There are many places here. If you sneeze once or cough, or God forbid, they will immediately give you this test. And as you know, if you follow the news, this test is really is not a given. You know, not in all countries, not available so easily. And here, if you want, you can get tested every day if you have any issues. At the same time, you have abundance of this masks. I have here, like, I took like, I don't know, like 5 now with me. You know, I'm stocking up for Holland, where it's also scarce. And the sanitizers, I mean, they're just bottles and bottles here. I mean, all these things, and everybody is feeling completely fine. They do all these tests. They check the fever, everything. And then after all that, to be complaining that, you know, you don't feel like playing, I mean, I don't really see the point here. I think it was good to hear that Magnus gave a good statement on this and said that, you know, sort of defended the tournament to an extent. Mm-hmm. And I think that I hope the challenger will also be a worthy one to Magnus, and can also stand up for chess in this moment and not start complaining about, you know, being here and how hard it is. I mean, it's really just like any other tournament. And I mean, I'm also unhappy that I didn't win today and stuff, but it doesn't make. And you know, there's so many.
We do have breaking news. Sorry.
Finally. Thank you, Anish, for joining us.
Anish, I hope you appreciate. And it did happen. Nepomniachtchi did resign, as we expected. That has certainly transformed the tournament completely. Anish, I guess he's not there anymore. Or is he still with us? He's gone. This, guys, is huge. We actually did see a few more moves get played. We saw one drastic move, Queen D6, G5. He did take en passant after H5, G7 with a second queen coming. It doesn't matter how you defend this, because E6 is also a problem if your queen leaves. Let's say your Queen G5, for example, or the very cruel Queen F8 could be played as well with the pawn promoting. So this is just completely over. A real masterpiece by MVL. This is going to be one he's extremely proud of, but more importantly, for the tournament standings, he is now tied for first. We have a completely different tournament right now, guys.
It just broke wide open.
Unbelievable. It means that Nepo gets just brought down that important peg. People, even at 50%, are eyeing him. Look, you're just 1 point away from me.
Exactly.
One victory against you puts me ahead of you in the standings. And take a look. It's Maxime Vachier-Lagrave there in first place with still Jan Nepomniachtchi. But remember, head-to-head, MVL is now ahead. He did beat Jan, and that is the first tiebreak. Meanwhile, Alexander Grischuk and Anish Giri have 50%, as will Fabiano Caruana and Wang Hao once they finish their game, because that is 110% drawn. Kirill Alexenko and Ding Liren, meanwhile, also split the points and are on 2.5. Who would be the best challenger to Magnus Carlsen? That's a tough question, but that's what we're here to find out. These are their lifetime records against Carlsen. I believe the MVL one must be backwards, because there's no way that MVL is 9-2 against Magnus. I believe that is 2-9 against Magnus.
Exactly.
So
based on how they have played against each other, it's Jan. Jan is the one who would
has traditionally done well against Magnus.
Except
the last time.
You know, history is made to remain in the past sometimes.
Right.
And you might see a number like that one and think, okay, it's just overwhelmingly the case. But what was their last match like? The last match was in London. Yep. And they played for the Grand Chess Tour in the semifinals. And they came out of the classical tie. Then they went to the first tie break, and they were tied again, and they went again. And finally it was MVL who defeated Magnus after one of the most epic battles that you've ever seen. Now, of course, it wasn't over 12 classical games.
Exactly.
And that's supremely important, different kind of thing. But I would say it's not going to be like when Fabi played against Magnus and people said, it's going to be all Magnus in the tiebreak. Come on. He just has such a dramatic edge. MVL in a tiebreak will definitely hold up. He would say, yeah, he's got his great chances, but could he survive the relentless pressure of a Magnus Carlsen hunting him down in the Najdorf and in the Grunfeld? Particularly the Grunfeld, I think, is the one that there may be more trouble for him.
Exactly.
Now, guys, this does set us up, because everybody that's at 50% is saying I beat one of these guys. I'm back in it.
I'm close.
I'm close. It's only a difference of 1 point, and what a matchup we have for you guys tomorrow.
Oh, you're sneaking ahead.
I'm sneaking ahead just a little bit. Sorry, there are the correct numbers. 2-9, of course, favoring Magnus Carlsen throughout their history in classical chess. A lot of draws. Nepo 4-1 advantage against Carlsen with 6 draws. Of course, they are players that know each other very well. Nepo has actually worked for Magnus in the past
World Championship cycles.
Although, to be fair, MVL has done so as well.
Yeah, now let's take a sneak look at that round 8 pairing.
Oh my, what do we have there? It is Fabiano Caruana with the white pieces against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Exactly the same situation MVL was today against Nepo. 1 point behind and with white. Must win game for Fabi.
Exactly. And Jan looking at Anish, and Anish was just on our show. And again, a big shout out. Thank you, Anish, for joining us. He's looking at that match and saying, look, if I can just get 1 point, 1 win, I could be tied for first. By the way, we got a local caller
from St. Louis.
I mean, usually it's not Egypt, it's St. Louis. Good morning, St. Louis. Please tell us your name and your question.
Yeah, my name is Joe. I'm from St. Louis, as you guys said.
Right.
I'm going to kind of echo what you guys were talking about with Anish, and in as much as I try to follow the chess, it's way above me. But you guys, the skill level is so much different. Do you see differences in play with all the concern over the coronavirus?
Maurice, are the players being affected by the stresses that are going on in the world?
Well, I can't see them not being affected. Whether or not their play has been substantially altered as a result, it looks like a candidate's to me. It looks like what you look at the way the candidates goes. It looks like a candidate's missed opportunities here and there, brilliant moves as well. So it's very hard for me to say if we eliminated the candidates that we're not seeing some really great games and some mistakes. Now, there may be someone like a Ding Liren, for example, who might have been more concerned in the early side of this when China was really feeling the pressure, and who knows what family and friends that he was worried about. So that, I would say, is the most surprising part of it. Fabiano Caruana looks like he's not quite himself either. So maybe that is the case, but I think it's hard. It's just really impossible to judge. By the way, there has been a result here. This game did end in a draw. The rook sacrifice that we talked about earlier was played on C2, and we have our final result. So this, we got a war on our hands, a brawl, folks. A 1 point lead by 2 players. And by the way, history is still on Nepo's side. History says nobody comes from a point down. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave would have to break that recent history and keep this up. But Nepo needs to right the ship. We know we've seen him do this before. Take a big lead early and then trip up and then keep tripping. He can't do that here. He needs to right the ship and then make a run in the second half to take over the lead once again.
Well, look at Anish. He's very confident. He knows that despite being black tomorrow, Nepo just lost. And he's the type of player that loses in a row.
Right.
If he can put a victory tomorrow with black, he leapfrogs over Nepo.
Yeah.
And actually, he doesn't. They would tie their head-to-head, and then we have more complicated tie breaks.
Right.
But that would put him back in the running.
I think he would leapfrog over Nepo. I think you said it right. That Nepo can't afford to start losing games because we can start counting Nepo's losses again, and Anish would be going forward in a brisk way. So that's a big matchup. But winning with black is going to be a tall order for sure.
For sure.
And Fabi winning with white, not such a tall order. So if those two can actually win, we'd have a massive tie at the top. What kind of result would that be after 8 rounds?
Right. Now let's put this together once again for the format. It's a double round robin. So the players have played through a complete cycle, 7 games.
We finished the first half of chess here over in Yekaterinburg.
Exactly. And now they're going to the second part of that double round robin. The players will play against one another in the same order that they did previously. They'll just flip the colors so that everybody gets black and white.
I'm not 100% sure about that.
The same order?
The same order, because I think that would give somebody 3 whites or 3 blacks, if I remember correctly.
Oh, really?
They actually have to switch it up a little bit. But I'll confirm that in a second. Yeah.
But they're definitely in the second half of the event now, and those head-to-head matchups become very, very important. And let's take a look at Alejandro.
We need
the smart guys in the room.
we need some validation tomorrow. Because
exactly.
If
That's what
wins,
it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Right.
Otherwise, MVL's looking good right now.
If Fabi wins, you're still only tied. Okay, I get you on the tie break. You'd be ahead.
Right.
But at the moment, it looks like some people are just a little bit more astute than others. That's all I'm saying.
By the way, I think Fabi needs to put together a really convincing game.
Yes.
I mean, we talked about the challenger earning it, going out there and taking it. Fabi has not played the type of game that brought him victory in the Tata Steel, where he was just magnificent. So I'm ready for Fabi to put together a really great game.
I'm ready for him to wake up. He needs some wins. Somebody needs some wins if they're going to challenge MVL and Nepo. They're currently tied for first, of course. Right. MVL with that slight edge over Nepo on the tie breaks. But it's still plenty of chess. I did confirm they don't play in the same order. It is very similar order, but not exactly the same.
And of course, you've got to avoid the Russians playing each other in the last round.
What about the final round?
Chinese?
Is Nepo playing Maxime in the final round? That's a very important question.
No. Nepo plays Dingliran with black in the final round, and MVL plays Wang Hao in the final round with white.
All right, so that means their revenge match will come earlier based on that. Well, that's going to be interesting. Well, if I may say, this was certainly a big day we wanted. We didn't know whether or not MVL totally needed to win this one, but he acted like it, and he delivered on call to say, all right, now we're tied, and I'm ahead of you on tie breaks after 7. Magnificent play by him, to be sure. What a great game on his part, by the way. Just what a great game.
When we're thinking about, we came in today, we said, look, this game between MVL and Nepo was our marquee matchup. Where did we really feel that something went wrong for Nepo? And we said, like, okay, now, like the opening hasn't worked out. When did it?
The finger feller castling bothered me, and then the game opened up. It just seemed like he had a bad version of this position, and he couldn't get his way out of it after that knight landed on D7.
So you reckon...
Even C4 for sure. C4 definitely.
C4 step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you're shutting down a position and you have no play.
Right.
But even before that, I'm concerned for his position. This king and rook on that side, that just left a really poor impression. I don't know how you improve when your pawn is attacked, but the king was on that side, boy, that was a big problem. Maybe knight d7 as you're targeting there could have been a poor move.
Well, that was where I really felt like throughout the game, in fact, that the knight on d7 turned out to be just really in the wrong square like forever. And later, it really turned out that the knight would have been so much more useful had it landed on the c6 square.
Yeah, but I think if you play knight c6, there is some tactical issue, because knight d7 is the top engine move. I mean, none of these moves are new.
This was all standard play up until...
I don't know if it's standard play, but I know I've seen the position, either from analysis or from something. I know knight d7 is the engine recommendation.
Okay, well, just tell me where you think that, boy, at this moment, at that moment, now I really knew that white was for choice. The moment I saw rook h8...
The problem I have with this kind of positions is the engine very often gives fine for black, and then I play 3 moves on my own.
And then it's just dead.
Right. And this is what kind of positions that we consider to be very dangerous for a human player.
Right.
Where if you play, but before I finish that thought, we have our friend, the man of the hour, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, with us. He has just defeated Jan Nepomniachtchi in the French defense. MVL, how did you do it?
Hey. It was cool. So first of all, Yasser, happy belated birthday.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah. And yeah, I wish I could say this was the only reason I was joining you per se, but no, I actually played a good game, and
he can help us. We're trying to figure out where did it go wrong for Nepo, and we're having trouble deciphering exactly where his position started to turn bad.
Well, he thought for a long time to play c4, And I mean, his position is a bit worse.
So were you happy to see C5, C4, Maxime?
Wait a second. There's an interview going on, so we have to leave the press center.
I think it's just
He's
straight up picking up the laptop. What a boss. Look at guy.
Okay.
He does it all himself.
Out of the room.
See, that's what happens when you can't take your seconds. You have to do everything yourself.
You've got the confession booth.
Is that the elevator?
Yes.
You've got
So, getting some assistance there from Leonard, our good friend Leonard Hotez.
Yes.
Yes.
So help us out. Where did it, at a certain moment you said, my goodness, I like my position. When did that happen?
I didn't like C4. I think, like, maybe King E8, it's very sad to have to play King E8, King D8, King C7, but, and also it can run into some C4 at some point. Maybe I thought also Rook takes B1 first, actually. Queen takes B1, Queen A6 was the way to play.
Keeping that king in the center.
Keeping an eye on E2 so you don't make
And
it.
if I go F3, maybe you're in time already to play with this King E8, or maybe Knight B6, Knight C4 at some point. I thought this should be reasonable for black.
I like that idea of Knight C4 because we saw how bad the knight was on D7 throughout the game, and suddenly on C4 it actually has a happy spot.
Yeah, so when he plays C4, the knight on D7 is not going to end up on the C4 square anymore. So
no, it's understandable to close the center, because if you takes, then bishop b4 comes with great effect. But I think it was just wrong here. So C4, castled, yeah, and I found this great idea of giving up the exchange.
Yeah,
we were very, very impressed with your decision to play F4 and sacrificing the exchange.
Yeah, but if you take pawn takes, Queen A6, B5, Queen B7 or Queen C8, doesn't matter, I go F5. It just looks plain awful.
Exactly. All
get
of your pieces are springing into
Sure.
the game. And the rook on H8 is a pretty sad spectator.
Yeah, I mean, among other things. Like, I think every piece is just sad, yeah?
Yes.
From rook on B6. I mean, the rook on H8 actually controls H7, so it's not doing...
It's not the worst piece.
No, I mean, they're just all bad, but like if Black's knight was on E7, of course, it would be a fight, but D7 is not cutting it.
Maxime, were you surprised to see a French get played?
A little bit, but he had played it already in the tournament, so I had to be ready for it.
Right. Now, when he played the move Knight C6, take us through your thought processes at this point, because on the one hand, you're feinting that you want to play G4, F5, and on the other hand, you came up with Rook on F1 to B1.
Yeah, I thought G4 was wrong because of, for instance, G6. Or even F5 is playable. So in both cases, I wasn't... No,
F5 before G6.
F5 for black, yeah.
I'm sorry. And yeah, you didn't want to play G4. We were looking at a position like this where, okay, we felt that black is suddenly
yeah, G4, F7. It could very well be worse. No, I thought Rook B1 is the way to go. Like, I mean, of course he wants F5, but I'm happy to let him because of this idea with G4 at the end. And I thought it's just very bad for him. Maybe there's draw somewhere, but I doubt it. After G4, I think it's more or less over.
Yeah, we saw your play. It was so crisp and straightforward. At this point, we were actually calling the game for you.
No,
there's a
very important point, though. Like, take on F5, take on B1, Queen B1, Queen B6. If Queen B6 is very important that I have F6, I think.
Very important that you have F6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you take on F6, I'm assuming Queen H7.
Yeah.
And then you kind of...
And I think after King D8, well, I probably should just take on H6.
Yeah, that pawn is not getting stopped
anytime
soon.
The thing is my knight was always covering for any sort of perpetual, so...
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything you can do here with black.
It was actually funny in the game that the knight on g3 covered all the perpetual checks. Here it looks like the knight on e2
gets to h3, there's not even one check. So
exactly.
A great defender the knight is on e2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That looks like a very nice, smooth win for you, which is why he took and knight g3, queen b6.
Yes. And here it's important, this queen a1 move.
Yes.
Because queen a2, queen b3 would be unclear, and after queen a1, if he goes queen b3, knight e3, there's just not even a check, ever. And his a pawn is not moving forward.
Exactly.
No, it's very convincing at this point. It was
Yes,
like desperation.
and there was just one last moment. So after king g2, g6, yeah, queen e6, knight g3, queen g4, king g2, g6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was the only chance, because if I take h5, it's already getting unclear, but queen a3 is very strong.
Queen a3 check.
Yes, he has to go king e8. And now queen d6.
Aha.
Yeah.
Pawn takes e6. And it doesn't matter where you go with the knight. Queen b8, queen c7.
It was very reassured this checkmate with f5. Checkmate-ish.
It's not, yeah. It's not, but it's good enough.
A nice puzzle rush finish there for you.
Yes, and okay, knight f8, knight b6 is the same story. Just f5 and then queen b8, queen c7. Or queen b8, f6 here maybe. f5, h4, queen b8, king e7. Probably queen b7, queen c7 works, but f6 was what I... Yeah, queen c7, of course.
Yeah.
Not queen b7, but...
f6 is cute.
But, oh, actually queen c7 is... Yeah, well,
f6 in that position,
F6.
Yasser, you were saying.
How does it work? f6, king takes e6?
Queen e8 check.
Queen e8.
So if you play king d6, queen f8, and queen g7. And king f6, queen f8. And... no, I mean king e6, queen e8, king f6, queen f8. Although it's essentially the same, but at least you took the pawn on e6. Yeah.
Nice variations. It's all looking very pretty for you.
You expect this to be winning. Yeah? Black doesn't have a check for like 3 moves, and you have this passed pawn, so you expect there to be something.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
But I took my time to play king g2 because I could play king h2 to avoid this g6 h5. I mean, or at least to make it less powerful, but king g2 is just more natural, and after queen e3, queen d6, I realized I'm just winning.
Maxime, I have a question for you. Going into this round, did you see this as must win? No other options. I got to go for it. I've got to beat this guy today.
Well, must win, maybe not, but you know, at some point I do have to win games, and it would have been a good thing to do it against the leader. So yeah, clearly this was a crucial game, but it's only half the tournament, so you know, many things can happen from here on.
Well, very, very nice win, Maxime. Our congratulations. It really makes the tournament that much more interesting.
Yes,
and you just blew the tournament wide open. I mean, it makes it great to be a commentator.
Kind of running away with it, but you know, again, it's only half the tournament.
Yeah.
It's only half time. Like even in football, you can lead by 3 or 4 goals, and you know, or you can be the wait, I don't remember. You know, this Super Bowl from 2 years ago. So I know it was.
Somebody came back.
No, like the team
Atlanta
was by,
versus
San Francisco.
No,
New England. New England.
Yeah.
New England was up big at the half. I was down big at the half, and everybody was counting them out until Brady came back with magic. But I do have another question for you. Now that it's even, we're calling tomorrow's game against Fabi as a huge must-win game for Fabi. What's your attitude going into that game?
well, I'll just be ready. If I play the way I played in general in the first half, you know, I won't be unhappy, and then because then that means that if he beats me, he will have played a really great game.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to say one other thing. I know that there's been a lot of criticism whether the tournament should have been canceled or not, but I do want to say that for us and suffering in self-isolation, you're bringing a great respite into our lives. We look forward to the tournament, to coming here to the club and, you know, commentating on your games. Otherwise, our lives would be very, very boring without this tournament taking place in Russia.
Yeah, I know it's weird times, but I mean, as professional players, we just have to keep focused on the tournament, and I mean, for one, I think I managed.
Yes, you did.
So far, so good.
Thank you, Maxime.
Thank you, Maxime. Congratulations on your victory. What a great one it was, and certainly lighting up our days.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Maxime.
Thank you.
Whew. And again,
that's the round. Tomorrow is the second half of the tournament, round 8, and Fabiano Caruana, who's been pretty disappointing this tournament so far, 50%, will be facing against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and a win would change everything in this tournament. And he needs it.
But look at that individual matchup. Those guys have really taken the measure of one another. And here are all the pairings for round 8.
And let's look at Nepo, the other leader, who is going to be playing against Anish Giri. He's white. Does he want to risk and string together some kind of rebound? Or is he going to risk falling apart? He's done it before in Grand Chess Tour, especially in Croatia. But he's a strong player. I certainly know that he can pick himself back up after a loss. The question is, will he be able to do so tomorrow?
And there it is. That's the question. And here's our tournament current standings. And again, we're not seeing too much social distancing.
No.
There's a 2-point gap between first and last.
And for the people in last making up 2 points in 7 rounds, that's certainly difficult. But everybody there on third place is looking at those leaders with hunger in their eyes. They know that a win against any of them will be absolutely crucial. Maurice, jump in with your final thoughts of the day.
Well, I know you spoke to the players about us having a respite. You know, this being the opportunity for the world to take a look and say, wow, we're having a good time being able to watch some chess. The best players go at it. And that's how I feel. You get to come to work and be able to call these great players. You get games like this where the cream rises to the top in Maxime playing a boss game. Suddenly there's all this drama in the tournament with leaders. We get Anish coming on and roasting us in a moment. I mean, you don't have any idea how much fun it is to be able to do this job. And we still have 7 more rounds. This is awesome. This is as good as it gets. And with a big dog matchup again tomorrow, Fabi versus MVL, we can look forward to getting a good day, good night's rest, and then more amazing chess.
Well, thank you, Maurice. Just pointing out that us is too many people. I get roasted that way.
I don't mind.
Well, I want to just say that coming back after the rest day, too, that the players really did bring it. It was funny because for me, the game of Fabiano, you know,
it's
frankly,
a puzzle.
I wanted to see more. He had the white pieces today against
The strange thing is it's a variation he knows so well because he's played it with black in such important games.
And so I expected him to show us why the Petrov has some issues. He didn't impress. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow.
We'll see. He is white again, so it's important for him.
Absolutely.
Win tomorrow or hope for the best. And at that point, you're really relying on the other players.
Right.
One more shout out to you, Yasser. Congratulations.
Oh boy.
Happy birthday, Yasser. When was
you.
this? Was I even alive back then?
Yes, it was. That was a U.S. championship, Cambridge Springs. That was very nice. A nice event. I believe Michael Wilder was the U.S. champion that year. So Thank you all. Thank you for all of the email and best wishes. I just wanted to say it was a great game today.
It was a great
I want
game.
to echo Maurice's thought.
Yes.
This is what the candidates is all about. This is why we love these tournaments.
Absolutely. See you tomorrow, guys. We will be back with more action straight from Yekaterinburg. Don't miss it.
Thank you for joining us.